crazy, but we didn't realize how much.
Well, yes, we couldn't necessarily give you too much information or we would have caused a panic.
Yeah, yeah, well, there's a lot of panic now. But I wanted to ask about the virus specifically. Was it bioengineered or was it just a natural occurrence?
Natural occurrence. It is the result of the destruction of various ecosystems on your planet that allow the virus that would naturally be contained in that ecosystem to spread farther than it normally would and find new hosts, because many of its own hosts, which would be the animals in the ecosystem, have been eliminated through the destruction of the ecosystem. Therefore, viruses will then seek out new niches to inhabit, which will now include humanity.
So what's the solution to this? Because a lot of people like Bill Gates have been talking about vaccinating the planet, which there's quite a lot of us who don't agree with that. So what is the solution?
Well, we cannot necessarily tell you which way to go. We will have to leave that up to you and your own choices. But obviously, since we are talking about the destruction of certain ecological systems, one solution would be the restoration of those systems rather than the continued destruction on your planet. Also, the reduction of fear-based belief systems, negative energy that is causing stress around your world since 2016 has diminished the immune system of most people on your planet by being put in exceedingly stressful situations of uncertainty, and therefore a rebalancing of the energy and an outputting of more positive energy would also be of some assistance to the collective consciousness so that the immune system will not be compromised in the way that it has been for the past several years.
So some people have been using vitamin C and quinine and things like that too.
I cannot discuss specific remedies that go into health issues because we are not allowed to discuss health issues in the physical sense of giving you cures.
Okay.
Now, as we have said previously, however, you can always begin with information we have already delivered on that subject, which means make sure that you are detoxified as much as you possibly can, so that at the very least, the nutrients that you do manage to put in your bodies will actually take hold in the cellular structure and allow your body to repair itself as best as it possibly can in the circumstances and strengthen your immune system. So detoxification of the pollutants that exist in your society that then get lodged in your cellular structures and prevent nutrients from being absorbed would be the first step, so that whatever you do intake will remain in your cellular structure, will be able to even get into your cellular structure by being as thoroughly detoxified as you possibly can be. That's all we are allowed to say about the idea of any particular physiological remedying that may go on in your system. Other than that, we cannot advise for the idea of health issues with respect to remedies and cures.
Okay, thank you for that. And in terms of like the Sasani Collective, you know, I mean, and the civilizations you're aware of watching this, but it feels like we're in some sort of reality TV show. So
in a sense, you are.
Let's call it Earth 2020. So what do they make of this virus episode that could you ask the Collective?
As we have already said, we recognize that you are going through what we call the eye of the needle. It is an important time of compression. The fact that you have created a situation where you are isolating yourselves, sequestering yourselves, distancing yourselves, gives you a sparkling opportunity to go within, to reassess your belief systems, to strip away those that don't serve you, so that you may in fact be capable of more effortlessly passing through what we call the eye of the needle to the other side. This is the midpoint. This is the crossing point. This is why we said 2020 was a very pivotal year in terms of what it is that is potentially possible and probable for you to experience on the other side of this. So it is an opportunity for you to strip away those things that are not you. Let go, let go, let go of the past ideas. Learn from them, but don't anchor to them. Don't repeat the ideas of what you used to be, but instead allow yourselves, as we said, to be informed by your future selves so that you can be guided effortlessly through this very, very narrow eye of the needle, which will not allow things that are not you to pass easily through it. So streamlining yourselves down by letting go of those belief systems that do not serve you and adopting only those ones that are true for you will be the whole point of what's going on in the center of this transformational period, passing through the eye of the needle.
Well, thank you for that. And when do you see this virus ending?
As long as it has already been going on in your general awareness, about 3.5 months of your time will be the amount of time on the other side of this particular point as well, before you will find yourselves going into a state where you feel that things are settling down somewhat. This doesn't mean that it may not reoccur, but the idea is that this passage is about half a year long, and you are in the middle of it.
Okay. And I feel kind of like when you said 2020 was going to be crazy, I feel like there's a lot more to come. And
there will be, but again, how you experience it depends upon what it is you let go of, so that when you get on the other side of the eye of the needle, the other side of that passage, you'll be able to handle whatever it is that does crop up from that point forward in a much more effective and positive way.
Would one of the things that may come up be as you read the energy now, would it be like a prelude to maybe President Trump announcing without a doubt that we're in contact with extraterrestrials?
We cannot make this prediction.
Okay, thank you for that. The other thing I wanted to ask was, in terms of the actual name of it, coronavirus, obviously corona means crown. So is this in any way linked?
Corona means halo.
Halo, sorry.
Like the halo, the corona of the sun.
Yes.
It is named that way because of the halo of protrusions around the virus.
Ah, right, okay. So in terms of the people who are, say, I'm experiencing a lot of different realities all at once at the moment. Sometimes it feels like it's fake, all this. Sometimes it feels very real.
Yes.
Sometimes it's in the middle.
Yes.
Is that because of all the parallel realities converging?
Yes. This is the time, and we will be in an upcoming transmission talking more specifically about this idea of the converging parallel realities in a transmission soon called the Parallel Reality Wheel, to give you more understanding and conscious awareness and efficacy in working with all of the different overlapping parallel reality versions of Earth you are now experiencing in this transitional period. Yes.
And in terms of the human trafficking that Donald Trump's trying to eradicate now, is that partly linked to...
We cannot comment on your political situation to that degree.
Okay. In terms of the hybrid children, is there anything they can do for us to help us, or is anything...
They are doing everything that they possibly can. Please, all of you, understand this very important point. We are all doing everything that can already be done. We are giving you all the assistance we can possibly be allowed to give you. You don't have to ask for more than you're being given. You simply have to become more aware of what it is you're already getting.
Right. It feels like there's a huge awakening taking place.
There is.
Is that the whole point of this?
It is the whole point. Becoming more of yourself through this transformation. How you do it is up to you, but we would strongly encourage you, as we always have, to let go of those things that are not you, those fear-based beliefs, to streamline yourself so that any transformation and any transitional passage can be experienced in the most effortless way. It's about discovering yourself from a new point of view.
Thank you. There's a lot of fear coming from the media, and they're constantly feeding it. So what would be some good solutions to overcome that?
As we have already said, let go of the idea of matching the frequencies of fear-based belief systems. Recognize through your own honest self-investigation and discernment what is and isn't relevant for the reality that you prefer. You have the ability to choose. Make a decision. What do you expect a reality in terms of what we prefer coming out of the other side of this? What can we expect to see? Because it will still take time. It will still take time. But this is the opportunity to practice knowing how to live in the reality you prefer through the actions that you take that would be representative of the actions you would be taking if you already lived in that reality. So it's about people allowing themselves to let their behavior be more truly reflective and representative of the reality they prefer to live in, so that they can navigate themselves through the different parallelities to one that is more reflective and representative of the actions they are taking.
Right. Yeah, I've noticed this, that I've been quite excited in some ways through all this and observing. I've not been really entering the fear really, and I've just felt like I've been observing it.
A neutral place is a good place to be, for then you are in the balance point and can make decisions more clearly by not allowing yourself to necessarily succumb to the vibrations you don't prefer, recognizing more clearly, more consciously what is going on and making the decisions that are apropos for the person you prefer to be, recognizing that those that don't match belong to another reality that you don't live in.
Yes. And in 2016, when you're in the State of the Union seminar, when your father passed on the prediction about there being in the next 4 years from then a terrorist attack on a global level, is this in any way linked to that? Because he also mentioned an economic collapse soon after that.
It is somewhat connected, but again, we will not make predictions at this time.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your time. And say hello to my hybrid kids.
You may do so as well.
Thank you. Shivai.
Children in a monastery who were making a flower bloom and materialized all kinds of things out of nothing.
You materialize your physical reality immediately all the time. It's just that those children have been taught that they're already doing that. So it's nothing that they deem or label as unusual. So the idea is to recognize you wouldn't have a physical reality experience if you weren't constantly materializing. And it's not just about your thoughts. It's about what you believe to be true. It's based on your theme of exploration and what's relevant for that. So you can expand the relevance, just as those children have, by retraining yourself and redefining the idea and understand that you're already materializing instantaneously. Otherwise, you wouldn't have a physical reality experience at all.
Is it also possible that when we're in a momentum and there's a certain manifestation that it's about to occur, that we can actually then create the thought that, oh, I want this, and then boom, it appears as if it's suddenly appearing. But
it can happen that way in the sense of the thought being an echo of something you already know is about to happen. It's not that the thought creates it, but the thought may be representative of the fact that you are aware that you're about to manifest it in linear time.
Very interesting. I want to ask you about relationships after this life.
Yes.
Will I know my wife and children when I transcend? Will my love for them still be as strong as it is now?
Yes. And in fact, it will actually be more all-encompassing. Because again, you are immersed in unconditional love in spirit. So it's not in a sense that it's stronger, but it's broader. It encompasses more. You see more deeply into that particular being. And yes, of course, you will experience them and many others in the afterlife, so to speak.
What advice do you have for people who are grieving the loss of a pet and who can't seem to get any signs or communicate with them after their passing? Is it likely that pets will reincarnate to be close to their humans again? And why do some animals choose the experience of being abused?
So that perhaps they will evoke the compassion in humanity to make sure that animals are never abused again, by example. So it requires action on your parts when you perceive the abuse of anything, be it animal or human or any other being, to take the action necessary to make sure that these kinds of relationships don't continue in the future. Reincarnation, as we have said, in a sense, can be created as an experience, and many times it may seem as if an animal has reincarnated to rejoin the human. It is another animal, however, but they may take on the vibration by being in connection with the pet that has died and exhibiting the same frequency to the human, so the human will see the flow through, the connection, of that particular frequency to remind them of the pet that is now in spirit. So the animal that is with you physically may be acting as a conduit of communication for those in spirit who have passed on, so that you know that the connection still exists. I would suggest that you drop any insistence or expectation for how the spirit animal should communicate with you, and just trust that when it is necessary, you will become aware of a synchronicity that reminds you of the animal, or any time during your daily experience you may suddenly think about the animal, then that may be indicative of communication. And as we have said with regard to human, in the idea of grieving for them, you may find that the grief is simply the way you interpret their communication, because you label it as a loss. So grief sometimes can actually be representative of the fact that the animal is attempting to communicate with you, but you're only experiencing it as grief because you keep labeling the idea as if the animal is missing. Whereas if you understood that the animal is present with you, just in a different state, and the animal attempts to communicate with you, you wouldn't necessarily experience it as a loss, and therefore would not feel it as grief.
This viewer has the question regarding communication with the cetacean nation. You had said to communicate telepathically. So I have been sending one what I call a bubble of communication every day. I include an image of nature that I've seen in my day, and I blow it towards the ocean in my imagination, where I think I get the bubbles back with images from the cetacean's day. Is this really working? And if so, who am I communicating with exactly?
Yes, it's working, and you may be communicating now and then with various random cetaceans, in the same way that you may communicate with various random humans in your course of daily events. It's not always necessarily the same cetacean. It will depend upon what cetacean needs to pick up on the vibration of the telepathic communication and imagery you have sent, and what is relevant for you to receive from a different cetacean based on your themes of exploration. So yes, it's working, but you have to be a little bit broader in your allowance of who it is that's sending to you and who it is that needs to receive whatever it is you have sent.
Thank you. What's the best way to get information from the Akashic records?
Well, again, don't think of the Akashic records as a particular place separate from any other place. Remember, everything is here and now, including information. So the idea is to simply recognize, as with anything, it's an issue of resonance. If you vibrate in harmony with a particular frequency that represents certain information, then that information will be accessible to you if it's relevant for you to receive it. Remember, anywhere you are is within the Akashic records, because, again, all information exists here and now. Lose some of the idea of space and time. Start really understanding and feeling that you are in the now moment and that all information is here now with you. And again, if you have a particular passion or interest in certain information, then focus on that and vibrate according to that passion. Feel that excitement about that information. Remain quiet and calm, and just be open to receiving it either through synchronicity or in your mind or whatever way it needs to come to you along the path of least resistance. And the information that is relevant and necessary will appear.
And some say Akashic records can be rewritten to twist history. I believe Akashic records work to keep everything that has ever been acted upon, felt, or thought crystal clear, and that they cannot be messed with. Is that true?
Yes, they cannot be messed with. What someone is referring to is the understanding that there are many parallel histories. So depending upon a shift in your own vibration, relative to the idea of the Akashic records or information that is available to you here and now, you may shift into a parallel reality that has a different history. You're not twisting the history that was in the reality you were in. You're simply shifting to a different reality that has a different history. They all coexist simultaneously.
So when you have different factions with different opinions of what is history, how does that intersect with the idea of each timeline has its own history? Because it does seem that history can be rewritten, or it is written by those that are in power, so to speak.
It depends on what you mean by in power, because everyone is in power. But the idea, again, is that you exist by agreement in a reality that contains the potential to shift to different histories. So you will seem to remain in one reality, but you will insist on a different memory of a different history, even while remaining in the same shared reality, so to speak. Because your definition of your reality at this time is that you can remember different histories, even while still interacting with those that are in different realities, seemingly as if they're in the same reality you are in, because that's the definition of your reality at this time. Now, of course, this does not mean that sometimes people aren't fooling themselves or lying about things to say, well, it's this way or that way. You have to be honest in terms of your integrity. But the idea is that, yes, it is possible for people in your reality to experience different reality histories at this time.
And is it also the idea that if you feel like you have to force your version of history on others, that's a different energy that then would, how does that energy affect the idea of understanding your own history or the history of others?
Well, again, this goes to what we said about the idea of lying to oneself, or again, not feeling empowered by the history that you actually insist upon. Because if that is a true history for you, then you will simply naturally align with it in a way that requires no forcing for anyone else to believe the same history that you do, because you are in a different reality.
And so what is divine timing, and can we influence it with our will of mind and manifestation?
No. The idea of divine timing is simply the timing that is correct for you. So this is why we incorporate this idea in the formula of following your passion, because then everything simply happens in perfect timing. Divine timing and perfect timing are the same thing, relevant to the theme that you're exploring as the individual that you are. There's no difference, and it's not affected by will per se. It's affected by passion in terms of what you shift to experience the timing of different events that manifest according to your theme of exploration.
And what is the mechanism of remote viewing? This is fairly long, so is this a good way to have some physical experience of what it's like to be on other planets and moons without limitation of the terrestrial body? And this person is not interested in spirit or dream visit, but in an experience where to some degree you physically feel the sulfur lava flows and hear the sounds of volcanic explosions.
Yes, well, again, this goes to the idea, like the Akashic Records, that everything is here and now, and it's not really remote viewing, although we understand what you mean by that linearly. The idea is to know that those other planets are here and now. And again, the more you can identify with them, the more you can resonate in harmony with those ideas, if that is representative of your passion, the stronger the effect can be of experiencing, at least to some degree, some of the physical phenomenology and manifestations that exist on those other planets. So again, losing the idea that it is actually remote and allowing it to be more here and now with you will allow you to experience some of those sensations that you're asking about.
Okay, thank you. And in regards to old understandings, how would you update our understanding regarding shape-shifting?
Again, there are many different versions of you, so to speak, you, in parallel realities. So it's the idea of resonating and identifying with those other versions, no matter how similar or dissimilar they may be, that are connected thematically to you in some way, shape, or form, and taking on those resonances, and even sometimes those appearances, to the degree that you can actually energetically convince others to see the differences in you as well, to share those parallel reality versions in what appears to be your reality. You're actually creating a kind of a bubble in which it's all right to shift to different versions, at least in appearance, of different versions of you in parallel realities to the degree that others can also perceive them.
In a sense, does that relate to the idea of Daryl before he was a channel and then after he was a channel, that in a sense he learned how to provide that representation of your consciousness?
To some degree, yes. Although, again, shapeshifting can take it much further. If he was inclined, if it was necessary and relevant for his particular journey, he could resonate to the idea of our reality to the degree where we would actually start physically looking more like us. But that's not really necessary at this time.
And I think some people have commented that at times he does look more like you.
Now and then.
Especially when he's channeling.
Yes, now and then the resonance may shift or expand to the degree where he may take on some of those aspects. All we're simply saying is he doesn't really need to fully shapeshift into the direction or take on the aspect of us to the degree where we actually appear to you, at least not yet.
Okay. What happens to the ego, the physical mind, and the personality self when a lifetime is completed? What of us continues? Is anything lost? Or does it all get to move forward together somehow?
Nothing is lost. It all moves forward together in the same way, by analogy, that you are no longer a child, but you still retain all the experience and the memories of being a child to whatever degree is relevant for you, even though you are now adults. You can move forward as an adult, yet you can easily call upon any memory of childhood that serves you at any given moment. So it's similar in that sense. You don't lose it. The identity and the personality of the physical being remains with you. You can access it and call upon it for experiential purposes at any moment you wish, as you even move on as a spirit into different realms and realities. So use the analogy of a child still being within you as an experience to call upon, even though now you are beyond childhood.
We're immensely grateful for you being here, and you have no idea how much grateful we are. But
yes, I do.
You are, okay. Especially this unusual time that we are in.
Yes, especially now.
Okay, I just have a few quick questions, and I won't take much time.
That's all right.
Regarding our ET neighbors, I know that we have to be at a vibrational state that we will be able to contact, or they will be able to contact us.
Yes, although that's not as necessary for some of them as it is for others.
Thank God. All right. So I was asking that it is true, it's our free will, but can we choose them to please contact us, or kind of forcing on us, or somehow kick?
It's not about forcing. It's about following the formula, raising your vibration to the appropriate level, and being the kind of person that they would then be natural in contacting. But again, you have to trust the timing.
Okay, but I don't believe that humanity is where they will be able to contact. I'm just saying that sometimes a karmic...
Here is something perhaps that is important for you to understand. We talk about the idea of disclosure, we talk about the idea of open contact, but remember, depending on the culture that someone belongs to, there are already ongoing contacts happening on a regular basis, and some of these contacts have been going on for generations. It's just that most of you don't know about them because they're usually taking place with people that are more connected to some of the ancient ways, connected to nature, so on and so forth, things that are more representative of the kinds of people and the kinds of relationships that some of the ETs find more compatible. So when we talk about the idea that open contact is about to happen in the future, we're actually only referring to certain cultures on your planet that haven't yet allowed themselves to open up enough or connect to nature enough or be themselves enough for that contact to occur in their culture. but there are cultures on your planet that have been having contact for thousands of years.
So these prophets or seers, and let's say, for example, Jesus,
Yes.
were they a human or were they also connected to?
Well, they were human, but they were hybridized like all of you, but they understood how to be fully more what they really were in terms of expressing all the abilities that each of you have, but are lying dormant within you because you're not allowing yourself to realize your full potential.
Okay, okay. Will you please help me with this idea that there is no outside reality, and the outside reality is a reflection of my own belief. Yet I see my hand and I see Bashar and I see a lot of people are listening.
Yeah.
How do I add up that there is no outside reality?
You are misinterpreting the idea when we say there is no outside. We mean there's no outside to existence. But you can create a reflection within existence of something that appears to be outside of yourself. In the same way that when you look in a mirror, your reflection appears to be over there. But it's not really. It's all the light coming back to your eyes. There's really nothing over there. So the idea is that the outside is simply an illusion that you create for your own purposes, for your own convenience to experience certain things. So don't misunderstand what we mean when we say there's no outside. There is outside as an experience. There's just no outside to existence.
So I'm talking to Bashar, that does exist.
But you're talking to your version of me. You're creating your version of me in your consciousness, knowing that I exist on a fundamental level. You are willing to match my vibration enough to create your version in order to communicate with me. Just as I am creating my version of you to communicate with you. Your version of me may not exactly be my version of me, and your version of you may not exactly be my version of you, but it's close enough vibrationally that we can actually exchange the idea of information.
All right, right, okay. And on that issue, when do we say this is a belief and when it is actually a fact?
There are only 5 facts. Now, we understand you can say it's a fact that I'm experiencing this, but that doesn't mean the experience isn't created from a belief. Do you understand?
Let me give an example.
Sure.
Okay, there are 40 million people live in California,
Yes.
30 million cars, and
Yes.
they burn like 20 million gallons of gas every
Yes.
day.
Yes.
So I say it's factually, I, as a person in California responsible for global warming
Yes.
and all these fires that we have. So
It is a fact.
or this is a belief.
It is a fact that you have created that experience with your beliefs. That's the way you use the term fact. In other words, these things can change. And if they can change, they're not fundamental facts. They're temporary facts that you've created with your belief systems. So when we say fact, we mean things that cannot change. Ever. For any reason. Whatsoever. We're talking about the fundamental structure of existence itself. But the facts that you're experiencing in your reality are simply the product of your belief systems, and they can be changed. Therefore, at most, we would call them temporary facts, rather than something so factual it can never be changed.
Okay, in this version of reality I'm in, would the global warming get rid of the humanity?
If it continues in that way, yes, it can be the destruction of the environment on your planet, as has happened on other planets. So the idea is to shift yourself by following your passion in the formula that we give you, shift yourself to different versions of Earth that are already more reflective of something other than those experiences that you don't prefer. At the same time, the way you do that is by acting physically in the best interests of demonstrating to people how to do things, how to act, how to make choices that are more representative of a different kind of world So that's what makes it easier for you to shift there and also give others an opportunity to do so as well, should they choose to do so, by seeing an example in you of the kind of behaviors that would be more representative of the kind of world you prefer.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Does that help?
Definitely. Can I ask one or two more questions? Do I have
Well,
time?
again, that was a question.
Yes. What do we take from this life to afterlife?
You take your experience. You take what it is you wish to apply to your own path, your own growth, and go on to the next adventure, whatever that you choose that to be.
And when we say thank Bashar or thank God, who we are thanking?
Yourselves
thank
in a
God.
different reflection.
So if I say thank God, that means I'm thanking myself?
Well, you're thanking the idea of the whole concept of existence itself. You are expressing gratitude at being a part of it. So I'm not saying it's completely just yourself as an individual, but you are a part and an expression of all that is. So in a sense, you are being grateful and in appreciation of yourself as yourself, but simultaneously also as the whole of everything that is beyond you as an individual.
Okay. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Translating unconditional love.
Yes.
The others are a number of close and previously trusted family members and also close friends who've not been happy for myself and or my partner about us or our life choices, perhaps jealousy to some degree.
All right, but please begin with your important question. We'll get to the others in a moment.
Okay, well, my question is that about them and how we achieve total forgiveness, that is unconditional love, for these particular people.
All right, and are you familiar with what we have recently delivered as a 5-step process for going through the eye of the needle that includes the first step being forgiveness?
Yes, I know how important it is that we must forgive them
All right.
and unconditionally love them. But
well, do you understand that if you maintain a connection to things like the idea of self-incrimination or that which has in your mind trespassed, as you say, against you, do you understand that you anchor yourself to that reality?
Yes.
Well, if you understand that, then why would you want to continue to anchor yourself to a reality you say you no longer prefer? Forgiveness is literally the cutting of the chain that anchors you to a past that you say you no longer prefer. It's letting go of anything that you believe you need in order for you to move forward, so that you understand that regardless of what anyone else may have done, the idea is that you realize that you no longer prefer to connect yourself to those ideas and maintain the vibrations that are lower than you prefer to maintain, and are really willing to be free to create the reality that you prefer by snapping those chains, by cutting those ties, by forgiving and letting go and realizing that they have their own path and that it's none of your business what they choose to do with it. So that you can be free to walk your own path by not anchoring yourself to those realities, those vibrations, those frequencies, those actions that they may or may not have done in physical reality, or what you may have imagined that they have done that you see as vibrationally incompatible with you and your preferences. But as long as you anchor yourself to them, you are still choosing them.
Yes. And I think that's where my question lies, is how to deal with that. Like, if it was a past event, I can see how you can accept it's previously happened and now it's time to move on from that. It doesn't serve you anymore. But some of the behavior that we're experiencing from these people it's not just ongoing, but it has an effect on other relationships, in particular children. And so it's like an ongoing feeling of being...
All right, but remember that feelings are the result of what you believe to be true.
Yeah.
And what is it you are teaching your children in terms of how to respond to these things?
Yeah, well, the children are in effect not wanting contact because of what they're being told about.
Then maybe they are telling you something that you need to also pay attention to. Why are you maintaining a contact with something that you say you are no longer vibrationally compatible with?
Yeah.
So if you can answer that question for yourself, you will realize that perhaps whatever it is you have shared with them about your particular reality, your particular belief systems that you prefer, is not necessarily something that they may choose. And if they don't, then it's none of your business. Move on.
Sure.
If you get to a point where you realize that no change is forthcoming, that they're not going to make a choice to vibrationally align with you, why would you perpetuate contact with something that is not representative of the reality you prefer? That's number one. Number two is, again, if you are going to at least allow them the opportunity to consider that they might even change, you have to show them through your actions the consequences of their choices. Otherwise, you're not even actually giving them an opportunity to say, oh, she is removing herself from our reality, and therefore, if we actually do prefer to continue to have some kind of relationship with her, we're the ones that are going to have to change because she's showing us the consequences of the choices that we're making that are not compatible with what she prefers. So if you don't actually move away, you're not even giving them an opportunity to decide whether or not to change. You're only perpetuating the ideas that you find vibrationally incompatible by staying around and reinforcing that it's okay for them to keep acting the way they're acting toward you because you're willing to accept it.
Yeah.
So you have to take responsibility for your part in the creation of the perpetuation of the vibration you say you don't prefer. And that's why forgiveness is not only about forgiving them, but also forgiving yourself. That's part two, remember?
Yes. And those that are influencing the children and other family members and other friends.
But as I said, no one is influenced unless they choose to be.
Yeah, sure.
If you really understand you are in your own reality, then the only way you can experience what you call an influence is to accept that what is being said about you is true. And then you influence yourself by matching the frequencies you're being offered that you say you don't prefer. And that's why we asked you, what are you teaching the children? Because if the children themselves recognize that they don't have to choose to experience influence from something vibrationally incompatible, then they may be showing you the way to allow yourself to recognize that you cannot be influenced by anything you don't agree with. And if other people are choosing to create agreement with something they find vibrationally incompatible, choosing to create what appears to be influence by others, again, all you can do is let them know there are other choices they could make, but only to a point where you yourself are not anchoring yourself to those realities and then allowing your vibration to diminish so that you also feel influenced when you don't have to.
Yes, thank you.
You really have to let go of things that are no longer relevant for you.
Yes, and it's that recognizing that it just doesn't serve us at all to feel.
And that's, in essence, forgiveness.
Yes. Yeah.
You have to let them have their path while you don't deny yourself your own path. You have to be true to everyone, not by being responsible for them, but by being responsible to them to be yourself, regardless of anything they may have ever done. You have to let it go. Otherwise, you are simply remaining where you say you don't wish to live.
Yeah.
Does that help?
It does. It does. And on that theme of forgiveness on the wider level, we know that there is the extreme damage to our ecosystems and our planet, with a significant contribution to that from animal agriculture and the inhumane conditions in which animals have been kept. Including
and therefore, what would you like to do about it? Again, forgiveness doesn't mean you can't do something about it, because if you're going to transition yourself to a reality that you prefer, you still have to take the actions that you would be taking in that reality that are representative of the reality you prefer. So how are you transforming your preferences into actual representative actions that are more reflective of the reality you prefer? What actions are you taking in that direction would be the answer.
Yeah, well, we are ethical vegans, so we are choosing not to take part in that treatment of the
That's
animal.
one step.
Yeah, but
what else could you be doing?
Well, we need to be forgiving those that are involved.
But can you also be educating? Can you also share information that demonstrates the idea that this may not necessarily be the kind of choices that you or others may wish to make. If you give them alternatives, they may choose those alternatives. Again, you can't force them to. And remember that that's not necessarily the world you live in just because you can see it.
Yes.
You understand?
Yes, I do.
But
Yeah.
give them an option and they may take it. If they don't take it, fine. It's none of your business whether they do or not. But if you give them an option, if you give them information, if you give them education that there are alternatives and how beneficial those alternatives might be for them, then at least you are doing the most you can do to give them the option to change, the option to align with your particular perspective. But that's all you can do. But you have to take some actions if you wish to give other people a chance to change.
Yes. Yes, and we do certainly try to educate and use skills to assist people who are activists who need assistance.
All right, then you are doing what you can.
Yeah, and in the idea of forgiveness, in the theme of forgiveness, those people who are educated or do have the information and choose still to continue for profit or because it's easier to do so,
then that is representative of a reality you don't live in. Just because you can see it doesn't mean you're in it.
Yeah.
You have to understand it's like there's a glass wall between you and that reality. You can still see through the wall. They can see you, but nothing can get to you through that wall.
Sure.
Just keep living in the way you prefer to be living and being a living example of choices others could make should they decide to do so. Remember, you never change the world you're on. You change yourself and you shift to another already existing version of Earth that is already more reflective, bit by bit, more and more every day, of the version of Earth that you prefer to experience. But you never change the world you were on. That world will continue on its own and may be a very destructive world. But you will no longer live in it. In the years to come, you will no longer perceive it. It will look like the world you are on has changed, but it never does. You change and go to another world that already exists, that's already more reflective of the world you prefer to be on.
Oh, that's amazing. That's brilliant.
That's how it works, because everything exists at the same time. Therefore, it's only separated by frequency. This is one of the things that we are talking about in this particular transmissions monologue. More specifically, is the whole idea of how to more effectively and more consciously navigate different parallel versions of reality so that you can more consciously navigate through those versions and experience more of the kind of alternate universal realities that you prefer.
Awesome. Thank you.
Anything else?
The final question I've got is a slightly different topic.
Yeah.
As soon as we were discussing this transmission between myself and my partner, our cat has showed immediate interest. And he has been acting as our guide in higher energy since we made big life changes and have been following our highest excitement. He's been a really big part of it.
Well, cats can see many things that humans often cannot.
Yeah, and we were wondering to what extent we may be likely to find evidence that he is an ET slipping out in and out of different dimensions and realities. Because we've been dreaming about him as a different being.
Cats are extra dimensionals. All cats are extra dimensionals. Now, that doesn't mean they don't have a physical component that remains on your planet.
No.
But all cats have the capacity to go through a revolving door in their consciousness that allows them to tap into extra dimensional sources of energy and information. And that's why their senses can perceive things that most humans cannot. So in that context, all cats are extra dimensional beings, a part of which is represented by the animal you perceive physically in your reality.
Yeah, brilliant.
Now, all beings are that way. What we're saying is cats are more aware of the fact that they're that way and therefore exhibit more of the traits of being extra dimensional beings that simultaneously coexist in many different realities, just as you do. But you're becoming aware of that, whereas cats have always been aware of that. That's their nature, that's their purpose, that's their reflection in your reality, is that everyone is extra dimensional constantly. It's just that they're helping you become more aware of that, to tap into that more concretely, more consciously. with more awareness and more action. Yes?
Yes. Well,
All right.
he's been playing a part a lot in our dreams during the pandemic. So we normally travel with him, and we've been stationary with him, and he's really been a big part of our dreams, including belonging to other people with a different name, and being a totally different being. He's been a big, fluffy, sort of wildly excited dog in one of our dreams.
Yes.
But it was really him each time in the dream. So
the consciousness of the cat will be whatever needs to be to assist you, to reflect to you what you need to know. So in that sense, cats are, to some degree on that level, what you might refer to as shapeshifters.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you so much.
We thank you for the co-creation of this interaction. Our unconditional love to you.
Thank you.
Effort, your car actually does start. Have you ignored a negative synchronicity, or have you successfully managed a challenge as part of your excitement?
It may be either. You have to, again, investigate yourself to understand. But then again, there are things that may occur that you may never understand directly. For example, I can give you the illustration that the car not starting right away may actually have prevented you from getting into an accident. So you have to look at it from a number of points of view, but also don't look at it too hard. Just go with the flow of the way it happens, remaining in a positive state, and you will then get the benefit from it. You will not always know why synchronicity manifests in the way that it does, but you can always take the time to check within yourself to make sure it's not the product of resistance within you to your natural self or to something that you attempt to do. But if you're clear that it's not, then just go with the flow of the way synchronicity presents you the opportunity to move forward.
Why do we need to experience negativity and suffering? Why did we choose to incarnate in a world where there's so much suffering? Why not just stay in heaven?
You can choose to do that, but obviously you want to discover something new and you want to be of assistance in helping people learn to transform the idea of the negativity and suffering and pain into something that is more representative of joy and harmony and ecstasy. So the idea is that you chose to be of service. You chose to learn these ideas so that you could help others. So put that learning into action. Help others learn how to let go of pain and suffering and transform themselves into more joy and harmony by getting in touch with the belief systems that they're holding on to that is causing the resistance, which causes the pain and the suffering, or the definitions that they are holding on to that don't allow them to be themselves. The idea of remaining in heaven is all well and good in spirit, as you say, but there are only certain things that can be experienced in the physical reality experience. Forgetting yourself in order to remember who you are from a new point of view allows you to expand and grow in ways that you can't when you're in a more timeless state. So the idea is that it is a challenging experience, certainly, but it's one absolutely rich with potential to discover new points of view, new experiences, new understandings of all that is in all the ways it can experience itself to be through you.
Okay.
We could simply add the analogy, why do your people go to amusement parks and go on scary rides like roller coasters? It challenges them to get in touch with whatever it is that may be representative of fear, so they may, under a controlled situation, have more ability and effectiveness at transforming that fear because they come out all right on the other end. So you could use that simple analogy for the idea that you've decided to go on a huge roller coaster ride, knowing that as an indestructible spirit, you're going to come out all right on the other end anyway. But in the meantime, you have different purposes for having chosen to be where you are, and most of them have to do with helping others learn how to transform things in more positive ways, along with you learning that lesson as well.
Okay. This individual asks, how do I let go of my unacceptance of negative beliefs and feeling that negative emotions are bad and that there's something wrong with me? I've heard dark has to exist for light to exist, but still I find myself asking, why do we have to experience suffering? I think my unacceptance of negative beliefs is making it impossible for me to let them go. In one communication, you spoke of the neutral zone. How can we get into that neutral state where it's easier to transform things?
Well, the paradox is, as you say, you have to accept the existence of the negative in order to allow yourself to be in the neutral zone where you have the ability to choose what you prefer without invalidating what you don't prefer. And you're mixing up a lot of definitions in there because you're talking about value judgments and not just a recognition of a mechanism. When we talk about positive and negative, we're not talking about value judgments of good and bad. We're talking about how you're using the energy, how you're using the mechanism. Negative energy, negative beliefs are simply that which make you experience the feelings of disconnection, separation, diminishment, so on and so forth. But this is a mechanism we're talking about. Positive allows you to experience the idea of connection, expansion, engagement. The idea, again, is that we're talking about a mechanism of energy here and how it works. Because remember, you can use negative mechanisms to a positive effect. You're doing that right now by experiencing physical reality. You are a bigger being than what you are as a physical person. So you had to use the negative, so to speak, mechanism of imposing limitations on your consciousness in order to focus yourself into a physical reality. But you're using that negative mechanism in a positive way to have this physical experience. And you are misunderstanding the idea no one needs to suffer. But if that's what's going to help you learn how to transform it, you will accept that experience until you allow yourself to realize it's not about being forced. It's about having chosen to experience something so that you could learn the lessons from it so that you don't have to experience it again. No one says you have to keep experiencing it. The idea, again, is that when you allow yourself to accept that negative energy, negative mechanisms are valuable and can serve in certain ways that ultimately come out with positive results, then you will, in a sense, allow them to exist. Just because you are aware of negative mechanisms doesn't mean you have to choose them. You can be in the neutral place by accepting that everything, positive, negative, neutral, is valid because you can use them in so many different ways in the way that you prefer to aid and assist yourself. So when you allow it to be all right for negativity to exist just as a mechanism, then you can remain in the neutral space because you can choose what you prefer without invalidating what you don't. And at the same time, recognize that you may be using many negative mechanisms to positive effect, and sometimes even using positive mechanisms to negative effect. So it depends on how you use it. Rather than focusing on what it is, focus on the idea of how you choose to use the mechanisms for a positive reason.
See. And this person asked also, how can I let go of the core belief that there's something wrong with me?
The idea is that you may not necessarily always align with the path or the vibration that you prefer. But again, that's part of the learning experience. Some people simply, because of their belief systems, have to get sick and tired of being sick and tired, and then they'll change. So you might be using the mechanism of painting yourself in a corner by thinking that something's wrong with you until you finally get so tired of not being yourself and thinking that something is wrong with you that you finally give it up. So that may or may not be the way that you're doing this. But the idea is, if there really was something wrong in the sense that you didn't belong, that you are wrong for being you, for exploring the things and discovering the things that you're discovering, even if they're not in alignment with who you prefer to be, if there was truly something missing from you, something wrong with you, you wouldn't exist, because creation doesn't make mistakes. So whatever story you're telling yourself, whatever journey you're on, there is nothing wrong with you, because you are obviously a creative manifester. You're always manifesting something. You're always confident about something. Even if you're confident that you lack confidence, you're confident about that. So never assume that you lack confidence, that you lack trust, that you're out of control, because even when you feel out of control or when you feel that something is wrong, you're using your rightness and your control to create that experience for your own purposes, for your own reasons. You may not be aware of those belief systems that create those reasons.